Imagine, if you will, the hum of a studio, a place usually alive with the sharp, calculated dance of political rhetoric. Now, imagine it bathed in a warm, almost ethereal golden light, a stark contrast to the often harsh glare of public life. This was the scene in a Washington studio where anticipation hung so thick in the air you could almost taste it. Every seat was filled, a sea of expectant faces, hushed conversations giving way to a shared breath-holding as cameras glided smoothly, capturing the eager eyes that knew they were about to witness something truly extraordinary. This was not another debate. This was not another policy discussion. This was the moment that made Karoline Leavitt cry on live television, a moment that resonated with millions and sparked a national debate about religion and public life. What happens when two of the most powerful people in Washington, individuals accustomed to the brutal, unforgiving spotlight of American politics, sit down and do something almost unthinkable today? They talk about faith, not the kind of faith you perform for cameras or poll numbers, the kind that's polished for public consumption. No, this was the raw, personal kind. The kind that keeps you sane when the entire world seems to be attacking you. The kind that makes a tough White House press secretary break down in tears on live television. This is the story of Kash Patel and Karoline Leavitt. Kash Patel, a national security expert, stepped onto the stage, a picture of calm authority in his sharp navy suit. His presence was commanding, yet held a subtle undercurrent of vulnerability that hinted at the depths he was about to explore. He shook hands with Karoline Leavitt, the youngest White House press secretary in American history, her elegance undeniable even as she gracefully adjusted her microphone, her pearl-colored dress catching the studio lights perfectly. Great too. See you again, Kash. Karoline smiled, her voice warm, instantly creating the impression of old friends reuniting after a battle, ready to share something truly meaningful. Kash chuckled softly, a genuine sound. You've got me curious now, Karoline. As they settled into the plush leather chairs, Karoline leaned in, her voice a hushed whisper, a private moment shared with a vast audience. Today isn't about politics, it's about something much deeper, right? Patel nodded, his eyes lighting up with an understanding that transcended their official roles. Exactly what I was hoping for. The floor director's countdown began, each number tightening the invisible thread of anticipation. The red camera light blazed to life, and the show officially began. Host Emily Carter, her voice bright and welcoming, stepped forward. Welcome to tonight's special conversation between two colleagues from the current administration, Kash Patel, national security expert, and Karoline Leavitt, the powerful voice of the White House. Tonight, Emily announced, her tone shifting. To emphasize the gravity, they'll share about faith, a topic rarely discussed openly in politics, and how it shaped their incredible journeys. Emily gracefully exited, leaving the spotlight entirely on Patel and Leavitt. The studio lights softened further, focusing on the two leather chairs where they sat, facing each other, a profound quiet descending upon the audience. Everyone sensed they were about to witness something rare and profoundly important, a glimpse behind the political curtain into the very souls of these public figures. By the end of this conversation, you'll understand why their revelations moved millions and sparked a national debate about religion and public life. Before we dive deeper, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because this story, I promise you, will absolutely move you. The studio lights, now soft and intimate, focus solely on Kash Patel and Karoline Leavitt. The audience held in. A profound silence leaned forward, every eye fixed on the two figures. It was Karoline, with her sharp yet warm eyes, who broke the quiet, leaning slightly toward Kash. Her voice, clear and confident, yet laced with genuine curiosity, began the deep dive. Kash, she started, her gaze unwavering, we've worked together in the White House, facing unimaginable pressure every single day. You've always shown incredible steadiness in your role. But I want to ask something personal. What has faith meant to you in this journey? What guided you to those spiritual moments, even while standing in the absolute whirlwind of politics? Kash took a deep breath, his hands resting lightly on his knees, a gesture that seemed to anchor him. His gaze swept over the captivated audience. For a moment, a shared acknowledgement of the unusual intimacy of the moment, before returning to Karoline with complete sincerity. Karoline, he began, his voice low but resonating with an undeniable truth. Honestly, talking about faith in politics isn't easy. Everything we say can be twisted or used against us. I used to think silence was the safest choice, the smartest. Play in a game where every word is scrutinized for weakness. But lately, I've realized some things are too important to keep quiet, too vital to the very fabric of who we are, even if there's risk involved. Even if it opens you up to further attack. His voice, though quiet, radiated a genuine sincerity that stirred a quiet ripple, a collective murmur of recognition through the audience. Karoline smiled, her eyes friendly and understanding, as if she were chatting with a trusted colleague in a quiet corner, not on live television. I completely understand that, Kash. Politics can be absolutely unforgiving, a relentless machine, and faith sometimes is seen as weakness, a vulnerability to be exploited. What made you decide to open up more, to step into this space? Kash leaned back, his hand lightly tapping the arm of his leather chair, his eyes thoughtful and distant, seemingly replaying a vivid memory. One night, he recounted, his voice dropping slightly after a particularly brutal day, facing all kinds of attacks, the intelligence controversies, accusations. I don't want to rehash it all, but I came home and sat in my study, feeling completely drained. Not from the work itself, I'm accustomed to the grind, but from this deep, aching sense of emptiness. I'd climbed so far in my career, achieved so much, but something crucial was still missing. He paused, a poignant silence hanging in the air as if the room itself was reliving that profound moment. Out of nowhere, he continued, a note of wonder in his voice. I reached for an old Bible sitting on the shelf. A gift from my mother that, honestly, I'd never opened. The audience listened with complete attention, some leaning forward, visibly drawn into the unfolding intimacy of his story. Karoline nodded encouragingly, her gaze steady. And what did you discover in those pages, Kash? Patel's face lit up, a quiet, internal radiance, as if he were reliving that transformative moment, right there on the stage. I flipped randomly to the Gospel of John and found the story of the Samaritan woman. It absolutely struck me. Jesus crossed every possible boundary, race, gender, social prejudice to talk with a woman that society had completely cast aside. He didn't condemn her. Instead, he opened a path to truth and redemption. His voice grew stronger with conviction, a quiet fire igniting. In the White House, we constantly think in terms of us versus them, allies versus enemies, battle lines drawn thick and fast. But Jesus completely erased those lines. That made me rethink everything about how I approach my work and my relationships. It was, and still is, revolutionary. Karoline nodded, her eyes reflecting a deep understanding, a shared journey of navigating the complex moral landscape of power. Kash Patel's words about Jesus erasing lines and the revolutionary idea of compassion in a world of political division resonated deeply. Karoline Leavitt, her eyes reflecting that shared understanding, leaned in further, her voice softening, yet still carrying the clear, confident tone of someone accustomed to speaking truth under pressure. That story really resonates, Kash, she began, her gaze unwavering. Working under this pressure cooker, I feel the relentless intensity every day. For me, my Catholic faith has always been an anchor, especially during media storms, when the world seems to be twisting every word, every gesture. But what about you? In the high-stakes world of national security, did those teachings, the idea of loving enemies, of erasing lines, ever create internal struggles, practical dilemmas in the face of very real threats? Kash looked directly at Karoline, his gaze sharp with the precision of a security official, yet completely sincere, free of any artifice. The hardest part, he admitted, his voice low and thoughtful, is actually living by the teaching to love your enemies. In my work, opponents don't just disagree with you. They sometimes want to completely destroy you, your career, your reputation, and everything you believe in. I used to think forgiveness was pure weakness, a naive sentiment that would leave you vulnerable in a cutthroat arena. His voice dropped to an almost whisper, a compelling intimacy that drew the entire audience to lean in, hanging on every word. But reading the Bible, I discovered Jesus talked about a completely different kind of strength. The strength to choose kindness, even when the world tells you to strike back hard, to retaliate with everything you've got. Caroline's eyes glistened with empathy, a raw emotion that shone through her polished exterior. I get that completely, Kash. At the White House, I face criticism every single day, and it's so hard not to hold grudges, not to let the bitterness take root. When you mention loving your enemies, it reminds me of a night during the campaign after a particularly vicious day of media attacks. I was exhausted, depleted, and felt this overwhelming anger. I prayed for peace, and the relief of letting go of that bitterness, of truly surrendering it, was absolutely incredible. Have you experienced something similar, that tangible shift? Kash paused, his eyes drifting to what seemed like a sacred personal memory, a moment preserved only for him until now. I tried it once, Karoline, he confessed, his voice tinged with wonder. After a really nasty smear article, full of deliberate distortions and outright lies, I sat in my office, completely ready to fire back with everything I had. My instincts screamed for a counterattack, a forceful rebuttal. But instead, I did something I'd never done before. I prayed. Right there in my dark study, I whispered to Jesus, if you're really there, help me let go of this anger. Show me how to live differently. He shook his head slowly, still marveling at the memory. At first, it felt totally awkward, like I was kidding myself, like it was a weak, ineffective response. But then, this incredible sense of freedom washed over me, like I was shedding a massive weight, a burden I hadn't even fully realized I was carrying. I realized that forgiving isn't about letting them win. It's about not being trapped by your own anger, your own resentment. It sets you free. The audience sat in complete, reverent silence, some bowing their heads, visibly resonating with Kash Patel's raw, vulnerable in a struggle. Caroline's eyes shone with unshed tears, her hand lightly gripping the chair as if holding back a wave of emotion. Kash, she said, her voice trembling slightly, that story means everything to me. Working with you, I know the incredible pressure here, and that feeling of being trapped by anger isn't unfamiliar at all. For me, faith has been a refuge, a true sanctuary, especially during the toughest campaign days. But after that transformative night, that pivotal moment you just shared, how did you continue your faith journey? How did you nurture that newfound freedom amidst the relentless demands of your role? Karoline Leavitt's voice, though still tinged with emotion, held a quiet urgency as she pressed Kash Patel. But after that transformative night, that pivotal moment you just shared, how did you continue your faith journey? How did you nurture that newfound freedom amidst the relentless demands of your role? Kash leaned back slightly, his gaze lifting, as if searching for the right words in the air around him, or perhaps within the depths of his own recent past. I started reading the Bible regularly, he shared, his voice now imbued with a quiet reverence. Not as some duty or just a book on a shelf, but to find real direction, to truly understand the source of that peace I felt. The story of Nicodemus in the Gospel of John haunted me. He sought Jesus at night, desperately craving truth, risking everything in secret. The idea of being born again, becoming a completely new person, and in a transformation made me reflect deeply. Kash's voice grew more passionate, a subtle fire igniting in his eyes. In the White House, we're so easily defined by our roles, our reputations, the titles we hold, the power we wield. But Jesus talks about in a transformation, about a core shift in who you are, independent of external circumstances. I wondered if I let these words truly guide me, if I genuinely lived by them, who would I actually become? Karoline leaned in, her eyes bright and voice lively, yet intimate, like she was sharing a confidence with her most trusted confidant. Kash, that question you just raised is incredibly meaningful. I'm truly impressed that someone like you, always on the front lines of political battles, finds genuine peace in Jesus' teachings. Do you think these values can actually change how we work in the White House? How we handle our daily responsibilities, especially when the stakes are so high? Kash nodded, his voice calm but compelling, radiating an unshakable conviction. I absolutely believe so, Karoline. In the White House, especially in national security, we constantly talk about protecting the country. We build strategies, fortify defenses, focus on strength. But through Jesus, I realized protection isn't just about building walls or using raw strength. It's about creating a place where people are valued for who they are, not their political faction or their power. He smiled, a humble honesty lighting his face. I'm trying to learn that approach, though I know I'm far from perfect. It's a daily struggle, a conscious choice to see the humanity in everyone. The audience applauded softly, many nodding as they felt the weight of his words, realizing this wasn't just abstract philosophy, but a lived experience. Behind the cameras, the production team exchanged quiet glances, recognizing the extraordinary depth this conversation was reaching. Karoline, sensing the profound atmosphere, continued with inspiration in her voice. Kash, you talk about inner change. Can you share more about how faith has actually changed how you view your work or how you interact with the people around you, especially those who might be on the opposing side? Kash's eyes sparkled as if ignited by her question. I'd love to keep sharing, Karoline, he affirmed, eager to delve deeper. I think it starts with really small things, Karoline, Kash mused, his gaze seeming to reach a distant horizon, contemplating the myriad daily interactions. In White House work, I try to see each person, colleague, or opponent as a human being, not just an obstacle to overcome or a target to outmaneuver. His voice grew warmer, almost gentle. Remember the story of Zacchaeus in the Bible, the tax collector completely shunned by society. Jesus didn't condemn him. Instead, he invited him down from that sycamore tree to share a meal. That simple act of kindness changed Zacchaeus completely. He leaned forward, his genuine curiosity evident. I wonder if I treat those who disagree with me with real kindness, with genuine compassion, could it open dialogue instead of constant conflict? Could it build bridges instead of deepening divides? Karoline nodded enthusiastically, her eyes bright with recognition. I completely understand what you mean, Kash. As press secretary, I try to really listen, even when reporters ask incredibly tough questions. Once, a reporter absolutely grilled me about an administration controversy. Instead of getting defensive or angry, which is my natural instinct under fire, I answered as sincerely as possible, based on the truth as I understood it. She smiled at the memory, a quiet victory. Afterward, he actually emailed to thank me for how I handled it. Not a huge political victory, certainly not a headline grabber, but that moment showed me my faith has real value in this work. It validates the choice to be honest and humble, even when it's hard. Kash's smile was gentle and knowing. Those moments absolutely matter, Karoline. They remind us faith isn't just something personal we keep locked away. It's how we can positively impact others. In the White House, where everything gets amplified, living with honesty, humility, and forgiveness can actually build trust not just within our team, but with the American public. It's about being a light, even in the darkest corners. Kash Patel's revelation about finding value in small acts of kindness and Karoline Leavitt's earnest nod of agreement hung in the air, a testament to the profound shift occurring on stage. The studio audience, captivated, seemed to collectively hold its breath, sensing that the conversation was delving ever deeper into the heart of what truly matters. Karoline, her voice still brimming with genuine curiosity, gently steered the dialogue back to Kash's personal turning points. Kash, she began, you mentioned that pivotal night when you opened the Bible during intense work pressure. What in those pages truly made someone used to the absolute toughness of national security and White House politics pause and reflect on Jesus' words? Her voice became intimate, as if talking to a close friend, probing the wellspring of his transformation. Kash grew thoughtful, his gaze dropping to his hands as if searching for words to express something deeply personal, something almost inexpressible. Karoline, I'll tell you something I've never shared with anyone before, he confessed, and the studio plunged into an even deeper quiet. One night, after an absolutely exhausting day at the White House, my mind was heavy, not from the work itself. I'm completely used to pressure, the endless demands, the constant crisis management, but from bigger, deeper questions. He looked up, his vulnerability striking in a man known for his resolute demeanor. I was facing criticism from everyone, the media, internal circles, over intelligence decisions. That night, I asked myself the hardest question: what am I really doing this for? What's the actual meaning of any of this? Is it just power, influence, or something more? Karoline nodded, her eyes full of empathy. Working here, it's so easy to get caught in the endless grind, the daily battles, the sheer velocity of events. But moments like that force real reflection. What happened next, Kash? Patel's face lit up, a quiet inner glow as he relived that transformative moment. I was sitting in my home office with dim lighting, and I noticed that old Bible on the shelf, still there, that gift from my mother. I'd never opened. That night, I flipped to the Gospel of Matthew and read the Sermon on the Mount for the first time. His voice grew stronger with wonder, a genuine awe in his tone. Words like "Blessed are the poor in spirit" and "Love your enemies" absolutely stunned me. They were the complete opposite of our political world, where power and winning are literally everything, where vulnerability is seen as a fatal flaw. They felt revolutionary, the audience stirred, many nodding as they were drawn deeper into his profound story. Karoline pressed on, her voice soft but genuinely curious. "How did those words actually affect you? Working with you, I know how incredibly strong you are under pressure. How did those teachings become part of your real life, not just abstract concepts?" Kash shrugged with honest self-reflection. "At first, I thought they were way too idealistic, completely unrealistic. Love your enemies in the White House? That honestly sounded like a joke to me. But then, turn the other cheek stopped me. Cold." He paused, his voice growing more personal. "I remembered all those times I wanted to hit back hard, to prove I was right against the media or political opponents. But Jesus talked about letting go of resentment, about living completely differently. I wondered if I actually tried this approach, if I genuinely embraced these principles, would things really change? Not just for me, but for the work itself." "Kash, your story really moves me," Karoline confessed, her voice filled with a profound understanding. "We both have moments where we feel completely inadequate, where the demands seem impossible. But faith pulls us back every time, doesn't it? It grounds us when the world tries to sweep us away." She leaned in, her eyes bright and voice lively, yet intimate. "You talk about inner change. Do you think these values can actually change how we work in the White House? How we handle our daily responsibilities?" Kash nodded, his voice calm but compelling, radiating an unshakable conviction. "I absolutely believe so, Karoline. In the White House, especially in national security, we constantly talk about protecting the country. We build strategies, fortify defenses, focus on strength. But through Jesus, I realized protection isn't just about building walls or using raw strength. It's about creating a place where people are valued for who they are, not their political faction or their power." He smiled, a humble honesty lighting his face. "I'm trying to learn that approach, though I know I'm far from perfect. It's a daily struggle, a conscious choice to see the humanity in everyone. Faith becomes our compass, guiding us toward what's right, even on the darkest days." The audience applauded softly, many nodding as they felt the weight of his words, realizing this wasn't just abstract philosophy, but a lived experience deeply relevant to their own lives. The studio, moments before filled with Kash's powerful words about faith as a compass, now seemed to hold its breath. Karoline Leavitt, her eyes glistening, lightly touched her lips as if holding back an overwhelming wave of emotion. "Kash," she said, her voice trembling with an exquisite vulnerability, "that's such a powerful moment." A tear escaped and traced a path down her cheek, but her smile, though shy, was completely sincere. "I didn't mean to get emotional like this," she confessed, her voice catching. "But hearing you talk about the meaning of work, it reminds me of a night in the White House right after my son was born. After a particularly brutal press briefing, I sat looking at family photos, feeling like I wasn't enough, not a good enough mother, not a good enough press secretary." Her voice grew stronger through the emotion, an undeniable force of truth. "I prayed desperately, asking God for strength to keep going, to not be swept away by constant criticism. And like you, Kash, I felt this incredible peace, as if God was saying, you don't need to be perfect, just try your best." Kash nodded, with deep understanding, his eyes reflecting a shared journey. "Karoline, your story really moves me. We both have moments where we feel completely inadequate, where the demands seem impossible, where the weight of the world feels crushing. But faith pulls us back every time, doesn't it? It reminds us that we are not alone, that there is a purpose beyond the daily grind." Karoline's voice steadied, though her eyes still shimmered with emotion. "It absolutely does, Kash. Hearing you share so openly, I'm moved because faith isn't just a refuge from the storm. It's actually a call to action. You talk about service, and I think about my work in the White House, not just delivering messages, but bringing hope and truth, even when the world is full of doubt and attacks, even when the noise is deafening." The audience applauded softly, many wiping their eyes, completely captivated by the raw sincerity of the moment. A woman in the front row nodded gently, as if finding deep comfort and personal resonance in Karoline's heartfelt words. Kash, his voice warm and low, continued with quiet conviction. "You're absolutely right, Karoline. Faith isn't just something we hold safely in our hearts. It actively shapes how we face everything." I started seeing colleagues, even those who oppose me, as people who are struggling and searching for meaning just like we are. That's what Jesus taught me, to look at the heart, not just the actions, to see beyond the political labels and the media narratives. Karoline smiled, her voice lively despite the lingering emotion. "That's what moves me most, Kash. You remind me that whether I'm at the podium or working anywhere in the administration, we're called to love, to serve." Once, after a day of being absolutely hounded by the press, I prayed and realized something profound. I didn't need to win every argument. I just needed to be honest and do what's right. That's how faith changes me every day. Kash, his eyes full of understanding, said warmly, "Exactly, Karoline. Faith doesn't promise everything will be easy, but it gives us an unshakable foundation to stand firm and keep going, no matter what storm we're facing." Karoline wiped her eyes lightly, smiling at Patel with pure warmth. "Kash, today we've touched on something truly special," she said, as if wanting to hold on to this precious moment forever. Kash's eyes were gentle yet resolute. "I feel it too, Karoline. These are things we usually keep private, guarded, but sharing them creates real, meaningful connection." He turned to address the audience as if speaking to each person individually. "I hope what we've shared today sparks something in you, even if it's just a new perspective on faith and public service, a reminder that humanity can prevail." The audience erupted in enthusiastic applause, many standing to show their deep appreciation. An older woman in the front row, clutching her handkerchief, nodded as if Kash and Karoline's words had stirred treasured personal memories. A technician whispered to a colleague, "I've never seen a show like this. They're speaking straight from the heart." Karoline beamed. "Kash, I think both the audience here and viewers at home can feel your complete sincerity." She glanced at her notes. "I checked social media during the show. People are genuinely moved. Someone wrote, 'I didn't expect someone like you, working in the White House, to be so open about faith.' What do you think about that?" Kash shrugged, his gesture simple but genuine. "I don't see myself as anyone special, Karoline. I'm just someone trying to find meaning, like everyone else here. If my words touch even one person, that's more than enough." His words were simple, yet carried profound weight. Outside the studio, the conversation was already spreading across social media like wildfire. Posts emerged on various platforms reflecting dramatically different perspectives. One user wrote, "Kash Patel made me see him in a completely different light. Talking about faith in politics like this? That's incredibly bold." A conservative account praised, "Leave it to Patel to show how faith can actually change politics. This is exactly what we need." But skepticism appeared too. Is Patel talking about Jesus to win favor, or is this real? Still not sure. These debates heated up across online forums. The production team received word from editors that major news outlets had taken notice. Fox News posted, "Patel and Leavitt bring authentic faith to national airwaves," praising their candor and calling it a rare moment in politics. Conversely, other outlets were more cautious, suggesting the conversation might be a strategy to bolster the administration's image. Still, both sides agreed the show had sparked an unprecedented wave of discussion. Karoline, sensing the moment's massive impact, turned to Kash with shining eyes. "Kash, I think today we didn't just talk. What we shared could spark something much bigger in the White House, in society, don't you think so?" Kash's eyes gleamed with unshakable resolve. "I absolutely hope so, Karoline. Faith, when lived authentically, can be a bridge not to force others to think like us, but to remind everyone that we all crave something deeper, meaning, purpose, genuine connection." Karoline smiled brightly. "Kash, we've touched so many hearts today. How do we take these values out there and create real, lasting change?" Kash, his eyes alight with conviction, tapped his chair lightly, his voice low but powerfully resonant. "Karoline, I believe faith isn't just a light in the soul. It's a fire that spreads. In the White House, it's easy to get caught in endless power struggles, but faith reminds me that every decision, every word is a chance to plant hope. In national security, I want to not only protect the country, but help build a place where everyone is valued, just as Jesus did. Karoline nodded, her smile radiant, as if inspired by Patel's words. I completely understand, Kash. As press secretary, I stand at that podium daily, sometimes feeling like I'm facing the entire world. But faith teaches me I don't need to win every argument. I just need to be honest and bring a little light. Once, after a particularly tense press briefing, a viewer wrote saying, "My sincerity made them see politics differently." That's when I realized these values can genuinely change how we connect. The audience listened with complete attention, many nodding gently as if finding comfort in the shared words of Kash Patel and Karoline Leavitt. A man in a simple jacket quietly wiped his eyes as if their confessions had touched something hidden deep within him. Kash, sensing the studio's profound atmosphere, continued with gentle sincerity, "Karoline, I think today we're reminding people that faith isn't just for keeping locked inside. It's an invitation to live differently, to treat others with kindness, even when they're on the opposing side. If we can do that, even in small ways, I believe it will create ripples of real change." Karoline smiled, her voice lively as if wanting to send one final powerful message. "Kash, you're absolutely right. In the White House, we face constant arguments, pressure, division. But if we bring love, truth, and humility to our work, we can build something lasting not just for today, but for generations to come." Kash nodded, his eyes shining with complete agreement. "That's exactly what I hope for. Karoline, it's not easy. We'll stumble. We'll face criticism. But faith is our compass, guiding us toward what's right, even on the darkest days. I want to leave here determined to live true to those values in everything I do." The audience rose. As one, applause roaring like a powerful wave, not just in praise, but in deep resonance with what they'd witnessed. Some wiped tears. Others whispered to neighbors, wanting to hold on to this extraordinary moment. Karoline, beaming, stood and shook Patel's hand with a firm, meaningful grip. "Thank you, Kash," she said, her voice emotional but strong. "You've inspired me, and I believe everyone here feels it too." Patel smiled, his voice soft but firm. "Thank you, Karoline. This is a shared journey, and I'm grateful to walk it with you." The cameras pulled back, capturing the two standing side by side as the audience continued clapping, some shouting words of encouragement. The production team backstage quietly nodded to each other, realizing this show had become a genuine call to reflect on faith and responsibility in our turbulent world. The story of what Kash Patel shared about Jesus, the moment that left Karoline in tears, reflects a profound aspect of life in America today, where political polarization and work pressure often leave people feeling completely lost. As Patel and Leavitt experienced in the current administration, both figures face intense scrutiny from media and public. Patel has been attacked for his role in national security, while Leavitt faces constant pressure as press secretary. Their personal moments: Patel kneeling in prayer to release anger, Leavitt finding peace through scripture after grueling press days, show how faith can be an anchor amid society's battle lines. Their conversation, from applying the teaching of love your enemies in politics to living honestly under media pressure, reflects a desperate need for healing in a deeply divided America. The lesson for real life in America today is to find a spiritual anchor like faith to overcome pressure and hold firm to personal values. Try, as Patel did, taking quiet moments to pray or reflect when facing conflict, instead of letting anger take control. Draw inspiration from Leavitt to live with honesty and humility, even in competitive environments, in workplaces or on social media. These small acts, listening, forgiving, staying sincere, can create genuine connection, just as their dialogue inspired the studio audience. It helps build more unified communities amid polarization. If this story moved you and opened your eyes to the power of faith in public life, like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories of hope and transformation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.